Just found out at 34 that my dad isn't my biological father. Trying to hold everything together. I am a 34 EM, and yesterday I found out something that completely shook me. The man who raised me, who I've always known as my dad, isn't my biological father. I came across a newspaper archive from 1998 that mentioned my dad's name and an adoption in the legal classified section. I asked my mom, and she confirmed it. The man who's been my father in every way adopted me when I was around 7. He came into my life when I was a year old, after my mom had left my biological father. Here's where it gets a little heavier. My mom married my biological father when she was 16. He was twice her age. He was manipulative, violent, and a drug user. She had me at 18 and left him shortly after. He's now dead. I don't know how, or when, or what kind of health issues ran in his side of the family. That part scares me, because my whole life I thought I shared DNA with the man who raised me, and now I don't even know my medical history. This morning, my mom called my dad, they're divorced now, crying hysterically, because she felt guilty for telling me and worried about how I was handling it. My dad was furious. He hung up on her and said he wished she had talked to him first. He told me he never wanted me to know because he was trying to protect me and he knew it would open a can of worms emotionally, and he wasn't wrong. He told me he wants nothing more to do with her. He said he's done answering her calls, and I believe him. But he also told me something I'll never forget. None of this changes anything between us. I wanted a family. I wouldn't change anything. We talked. We're okay. I told him I didn't blame anyone. I've calmed down a lot since that conversation. But still, this is a lot. I feel like I sorta lost a part of my identity. I'll admit, I'm sad. Not because of how he raised me, but because I used to believe I inherited things from him. That I'd age like him. Look like him. Maybe I still will. People always said we looked alike. Same humor. Same blood type. Same hobbies. But now I don't know what's real and what I wanted to be true. He dedicated his entire life to raising me. He chose me. He stayed in my life even after divorce. He showed up for everything. I've never known anything but his love and care. His own side of the family doesn't even know and believes he is the biological father. I guess I just want to know if anyone else gone through this? How did you deal with it? Did it ever stop occupying space in your head? Were you able to get back to that sense of emotional peace where it doesn't matter anymore? I'm not mad. I'm just carrying something heavy that I never asked for. And I don't know how to put it down yet. Update: I may not respond to every comment right away, but please know that over the next couple of days I'll continue reading each and every one of your comments. Thank you for all the support and comments. It's still an emotional time for me, but reading all of your comments helps. Also, to clarify, I was an emotional kid and I do believe that they didn't tell me to protect me. If I had known when I was at a vulnerable age when I was going through a lot of mental health issues, I might have done something that could never come back from. I initially brought up the newspaper archive to Mom and read what it said, but I only wanted to ask her if she was married before my dad because it had the guy's name on it. She assumed I wanted to know if my dad was my actual dad or not. I do understand why both sides did what they did. I still wish I didn't know about it, but that's my own fault for wanting to be nosy. I know I shouldn't blame myself, but it's hard not to. Lastly, I did as many of you suggested and I told my dad how much he means to me. We both cried together. Thanks again, Redditors. Let me analyze this story for you. This story is a deeply affecting exploration of identity, familial love, and the unexpected emotional weight of truth. The narrator, a 34-year-old man, is thrown into emotional upheaval after stumbling upon a seemingly innocuous piece of information, a newspaper legal notice about an adoption from 1998. What begins as casual curiosity quickly snowballs into a life-altering revelation. The man he has always called dad is not his biological father. At first glance, the story seems rooted in a single moment of shock. But beneath that surface lies a layered emotional journey, one that weaves together the pain of discovering a buried truth, the gratitude for unconditional love, the mourning of a fictionalized origin, and the confusion that comes when the version of ourselves we've lived with is suddenly called into question. The emotional whiplash is immediate. When the narrator confronts his mother, she confirms what the archive implied: he was adopted at age 7 by the man he has always known as his father. This moment alone carries massive emotional weight, not just because of what it reveals, but because of how it recontextualizes decades of life and memory. He learns that his biological father was twice his mother's age, a man who was abusive, addicted, and unfit, the kind of man whose presence looms large even in absence. His mother's story is one of survival, pregnant at 18, married far too young, and strong enough to leave a dangerous man and seek a better life for her child. In this light, her decision to withhold the truth isn't framed as malicious or selfish, but protective. Still, knowing this doesn't make the emotional impact any lighter for the narrator. It complicates things further. She was trying to shield him from a painful reality, but in doing so, she also withheld a piece of who he is, medically, historically, personally. His reaction is not one of rage, but of loss. That's what makes the story so poignant. He isn't angry at his parents. He isn't yelling or accusing. What he expresses is something more difficult to articulate, the quiet grief of losing an imagined inheritance. He had spent his whole life believing he would age like his father, that they shared a bloodline, a health history, a set of biological fingerprints. People told him they looked alike, that they had the same blood type, the same humor. In his mind, these commonalities were evidence of a deeper bond. And they still are, but now he realizes they were rooted not in biology, but in shared experience, shared presence, and years of emotional closeness. That realization is beautiful, but also a little heartbreaking. He didn't lose the love of his father, but he lost the illusion that it was something more, that he was the product of that man in every way. And yet, the adoptive father's reaction is the emotional cornerstone of the story. His response is not one of regret or detachment, but of love so resolute it seems to defy the disruption. None of this changes anything between us. I wanted a family. I wouldn't change anything. These words are simple, but they land with incredible emotional resonance. They are an affirmation of chosen love, the kind of love that is earned, nurtured, and lived out over decades. This father stepped into the role when the narrator was just a year old. He didn't just raise him, he loved him through everything, stayed in his life even after divorce, and never wavered. That steadfastness is contrasted with the instability and danger posed by the biological father, who is now deceased, a shadow in the background of the narrator's life. One father gave life, but the other gave love, and the story never loses sight of which one mattered more. There is also the theme of emotional timing. The narrator reflects that had he learned this information during a more vulnerable period of his life, when he was an emotionally sensitive child or dealing with mental health struggles, it could have caused serious harm. This is a deeply mature reflection, as it acknowledges that the truth, while important, must often be balanced with emotional readiness. The narrator is old enough now to process it with compassion and context, but that doesn't erase the initial shock or the psychological disorientation. He is trying to reconcile the version of himself that existed before the revelation with the version that now understands he came from a different source, and that's not a small adjustment. It is, in many ways, a quiet identity crisis. Not the kind that makes someone unravel dramatically, but the kind that keeps you up at night wondering what else you never questioned because you believed in the people who raised you. The way he processes it all, through tears with his dad, through introspection, through reaching out for support, speaks to his emotional depth. He recognizes the burden of this truth and carries it without bitterness. He feels guilt for discovering it, grief for losing part of what he thought made him him, and empathy for both of his parents. He's also aware of the psychological dissonance that can come from learning something that doesn't actually change your present relationships but makes you question everything retroactively. That's perhaps the most haunting part of the story, the realization that the people who love us most can also withhold massive pieces of truth out of fear, and even if they're doing it with good intentions, the truth still hurts when it finally arrives. What's so powerful about this story is that it doesn't end in collapse, it ends in connection. In the final act, the narrator tells his father just how much he means to him. They cry together. That moment of mutual vulnerability doesn't erase the hurt, but it offers a kind of healing that only shared love can. Despite the emotional chaos, there's a quiet, enduring resilience running through this story. It's not a narrative of betrayal or bitterness. It's about surviving a hard truth, grieving what could have been, and learning to cherish what actually is. And in the end, it reinforces something many people hope is true, that love is more powerful than blood.